super concentrated vinegar options. These are all non-accumulated substances in the environment. And I do know that the lawn care companies in Halifax have actually increased business by using alternative methods for people.
But no here, as you know, have spoken to the different outlets?
No, I haven't approached them myself, and there are certainly lots of people in town who are using alternates, but I'm not sure about the actual garden centers or what they're doing.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Joan, for your presentation. It was good. I just wanted to add that we haven't started to look into different businesses, what kind of outlet they'll bring in. I mean, this is kind of the beginning of hopefully putting together a select committee and moving towards a bylaw, because I think there's, a lot of people out there that want to see the city move towards that. So there's lots of different ways that we can do it, like with the permit system.
Where weeds and stuff were going out of control. So that might, in fact, our need to revise our bylaw on livestock in the city. But all I can say is I'd rather see a pair of goats inside a fence with somebody watching over them than to see somebody coming along, spraying something and putting up a sign saying, "Don't walk here," and they kill you.
Well, again, it's an issue of education, and many of those people who are spraying their lawns are not aware that a child running across the lawn and then tracking it into that child's home and exposing the baby, then crawling on the carpet in that home, elevating their neighbor's risk of childhood cancer. So I think, again, if you educate people, they'll hopefully make a change.
Dandelion is a weed before, and it's always been put on the back burner, but to Councillor Cadden's credit, she's taken it, and she's run with it, and she's been pushing hard for it. I was listening on the radio to somebody this morning who seemed to be taking a lot of the credit initiative, but I know it's come from the community, but it took somebody on council to take it and go with it. Thank you, Council.
And that council consider undertaking a one-year pilot organic weed control program at Marine Peace Park, commencing on January 1st, 2008 through the 2008 budget deliberations.
Thank you.
And it's an educated guess at this point, but at $9,500.
So in fact, we'll be looking at about $45,000 here. Thank you. Councillor Cannon.
Just actually going to speak on that in the report it does have it approximately $9,400 for that initiative, above and beyond what we already spend on maintenance at the park. But I just wanted to touch on the amendment of $35,000. Any bylaw or pesticide bylaw that I've seen, the education component is huge. Because if you want it to be successful, you have to have a really good education program. And I think with the $25,000, just that little bit more to work on our education component, what I think we need to make it successful.
Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Worship. In favor of the motion, both parts. I feel that putting $35,000 in the budget process, the deliberations at that time, and determine if $35,000. And I just wanted to make it clear the extra $10,000 to do the park program. That's another $10,000. So the total, as mentioned now, is $45,000. I think it's really important that the select committee is a balanced committee that makes sure we get some industry involved, because if we don't have industry and perhaps people like the greenskeeper at the golf course on that, I don't think we'll get all the information we need. There's no question that the cosmetic use of pesticides is too high, and herbicides, and education will be the biggest part of that. So I am very much in favor of the motion, but I do want to make sure that that select committee takes a realistic approach, because enforcement of this type of bylaw is not easy. It's basically based on neighbor complaints. We won't be hiring a bylaw officer to go check and see what people are. It's going to have to be based on with regards to maintaining fields and things like that. So I just would reiterate that long term, you're right, there's a cost to not doing anything, but there's also a financial impact to doing something. And I think that the test project will help us understand that potential financial impact a bit better. And perhaps we should be trying a sports field at some point in the near future just one field on some kind of fair back program to see what the impacts are. It's all a guess right now.
Anything further? Councillor Hitchens.
With regards to the pilot program, is it at all possible to, per Councillor's suggestion, include a field so we have a sort of a double benchmark for the aesthetic grounds and one for actual heavily used grounds?
Well, you've got to remember, Councillor Hitchens, this is a motion to go to budget deliberations, and if you see a whole pile of money left over at that time, perhaps you can include that.
Believe me, I know.
Councillor Cannon?
I was just going to suggest that we focus on this motion that's on the table and we look at that in the future.
Anything further? All in favor?
Your worship, that's in favor of the amendment then? We still haven't voted on that.
We still have the amendment. Yeah, all in favor of the amendment? You sure we didn't vote? Okay, all in favor. Does anybody want to speak any further on the motion as amended? All in favor of the motion as amended? Motion is carried.
It really needs to have some real leadership going forward. It's not even like helmets or seat belts. I mean, this is an issue where you just harm yourself, you harm everyone else. And I think we can give the people who don't really get a choice in this, which is the people out there in Fletcher Park or in other playgrounds in this community. So I'd like to urge council to move forward as early as possible to bring this to be a blanket ban of cosmetic pesticides in this municipality.
Thank you.
And it didn't really come forward with the motion, be that we have a aim for a bylaw with an implementation date, which I would see as January 2009 or December 2008, with the first year, which would be the upcoming year, being the education phase, and then the implementation of January 2009. So it actually gives us the year to work. We can establish whatever amount of money you want to educate people, which is up for discussion how much you want to spend on that. But the goal being the bylaw will be established at this date. We let people know it comes into effect. And then during that year, you can get all the various people involved and get everybody on board. It does seem a little bit vague the way it's been put forward, that we don't really have a, when is this actually going to happen? I mean, we have talked about this for a long time. Let's maybe amend the bylaw, say, bylaw implementation of January 2009 with an educational phase for 2008. And, perhaps move that as a possible motion.
Well, budget deliberations are coming up in the next month, and if it does get approved, it could be implemented early 2008, I would imagine.
That would be great. And then,
Yep.
discuss when you're starting.
Councillor, question?
Thank you, Mayor Guzman, councillors. I'm Warren Bell. I've spoken here before. Just a couple of comments which I think might clarify some of the issues being raised. First, every pesticide bylaw across the country that's been successful has always had a strong educational component. It's a sine qua non. By the same token, educational programs alone have tended to result in very little change, and in some cases in Ottawa, in an increase in use in pesticides. So the two go together, and the critical issue seems to be to tie a bylaw into the education program. That seems to give a little juice to the whole process. Secondly, all bylaws have had a list of acceptable alternative pesticides to use. There hasn't been a single one that does not designate a list of a minimum of 20 used to control pests, both plants and animals. I think that's really sort of a non-issue. The third point I would raise is that there are cities that have had plays for quite some time. Halifax had years that was subject to a Supreme Court decision, has had a bylaw for 10 years. It would save a lot of money for this community to contact the people who manage grounds and or pest control in those communities and say, A, what are your costs? And B, can we have a look at your fields and see what they look like? It's